Marine Lisa Chun stared at the empty space where her boots should have been 30 seconds before formation. The other Marines were already snickering behind her as she opened her wall locker again, checking the same spot twice. Her combat boots had vanished without a trace. Corporal Davis couldn't contain his laughter anymore. "You gonna show up barefoot, Chun? Maybe command will finally realize you don't belong here." The morning sun was already beating down on the parade deck where First Sergeant Martinez will be conducting inspection in less than 2 minutes. Lisa could hear the other Marines gathering outside, their voices carrying through the thin barracks walls. She had 2 choices: miss formation and face disciplinary action, or find another solution. Without hesitation, Lisa sat on her bunk and pulled off her green wool socks. She folded them neatly and placed them in her footlocker, then stood up and walked toward the door. The concrete floor was cold against her bare feet, but her expression remained completely calm. The snickering stopped immediately. Davis and his buddies exchanged confused glances as Lisa walked past them without a word, her head held high and shoulders back in perfect military bearing. They had expected tears, anger, or panic. Instead, she moved with the same steady confidence she always displayed. First Sergeant Martinez barked the command, and the formation began moving. The 5-mile tactical march would take them across rough terrain, gravel roads, and rocky paths that could shred feet in minutes. Davis kept glancing back at Lisa, waiting for her to fall out or cry for help. The first mile crossed the asphalt motor pool area. Lisa's bare feet slapped against the hot pavement, but she maintained perfect cadence with the rest of the unit. Her face showed no pain, no struggle, just focused determination. The Marines around her began stealing glances, wondering how she was keeping up. By mile 2, they hit the gravel training road. Sharp stones pressed into Lisa's soles with every step. Davis watched a thin line of blood begin to appear behind her, marking her path across the white rocks. He expected her to stop, to finally break down and ask for help. Instead, she adjusted her pack straps and picked up the pace slightly. Corporal Williams was struggling now, his breathing heavy and uneven. Private Jackson had already fallen back 3 positions, sweating profusely in the morning heat. But Lisa remained in perfect formation, her footfalls steady and strong despite, leaving crimson prints on the pale gravel. The blood trail grew more obvious with each step, but her military bearing never wavered. First Sergeant Martinez raised his fist, halting the entire formation at mile 3. His eyes had locked onto the bright red footprints marking the gravel behind them. The blood trail led directly to Lisa's position in the formation, where she stood at perfect attention despite the crimson pooling beneath her feet. "Who the hell is marching without boots in my formation?" Martinez's voice carried across the silent ranks like thunder. Lisa took 1 step forward. "Marine Chun, First Sergeant. My boots were unavailable this morning." Martinez's face went from anger to complete shock the moment he heard her name. He stared at her for several long seconds, his expression changing from fury to something approaching reverence. The other Marines watched in confusion as their intimidating first sergeant's entire demeanor shifted. "Company attention!" Martinez barked suddenly, his voice now filled with respect rather than rage. The entire formation snapped to attention as Martinez stepped forward and rendered a crisp salute directly to Lisa. "Gunnery Sergeant Chun, I apologize for not recognizing you immediately. It is an honor to have you in my unit." Davis felt his stomach drop as the words hit him. Gunnery Sergeant. The rank meant she outranked everyone in the formation except Martinez himself. His prank had just humiliated a senior non-commissioned officer with a service record he couldn't even imagine. Word spread through the base like wildfire within hours. Gunnery Sergeant Lisa Chun wasn't just any Marine. She was Force Recon, 3 combat deployments in Afghanistan, Silver Star recipient, and survival instructor for Special Operations Command. Davis sat in the chow hall, staring at his untouched meal as other Marines whispered about his monumental screw-up. The base medic had bandaged Lisa's feet, shaking his head in disbelief at the damage she'd endured without complaint. 47 stitches total, but she'd walked into the medical tent under her own power, refusing a wheelchair or stretcher. Meanwhile, Captain Rodriguez was dealing with a developing crisis in his office. The radio crackled with urgent reports from Sector 7. 2 Marines from a routine patrol had missed their scheduled check-in 6 hours ago. Their last known position was in hostile territory near the Pakistan border, an area known for Taliban activity and treacherous mountain terrain. Search and rescue protocols demanded immediate action, but the specialized personnel needed for such operations were scattered across different bases. Rodriguez studied the personnel roster on his desk, looking for someone with the exact combination of skills needed for this type of mission. His fingers stopped at one name: Gunnery Sergeant Lisa Chun, Force Reconnaissance. Captain Rodriguez found Lisa in the equipment bay, methodically cleaning her rifle despite her bandaged feet. The other Marines gave her a wide berth now, their earlier mockery replaced by nervous respect. Davis hadn't shown his face anywhere near her since the formation incident. "Gunny Chun, I need to speak with you privately." Rodriguez's tone was urgent but respectful. They walked to his office where a detailed topographical map covered his desk. Red pins marked the last known positions of Lance Corporals Mitchell and Barnes, 2 Marines from Davis's squad who had volunteered for a routine border reconnaissance mission. Intel suggests they may have encountered an IED or hostile fire near this ridgeline. Rodriguez pointed to a cluster of peaks marked in red. "The terrain is too rough for vehicle extraction, and weather's closing in fast. We need someone who knows mountain rescue and can operate independently in hostile territory." Lisa studied the map carefully, noting the elevation changes and potential approach routes. The missing Marines were in the exact type of terrain she trained in for years. Worse, a winter storm system was moving in from the north, which would make any rescue attempt exponentially more dangerous within 12 hours. "Sir, what assets do we have available for immediate deployment?" Her voice was calm and professional, already shifting into mission planning mode. Rodriguez spread additional intelligence reports across the map. "Taliban activity has increased in this sector over the past week. Our missing Marines might be pinned down or captured. Standard rescue protocols call for a full team deployment, but we don't have time to assemble proper support." Lisa traced potential infiltration routes with her finger, calculating distances and elevation changes. The storm front would hit the mountain peaks in 8 hours, making helicopter extraction impossible for at least 48 hours afterward. Any rescue attempt had to happen now. "Sir, I can be ready to deploy in 30 minutes. Her bandaged feet throbbed with each step, but her voice carried absolute confidence. "Gunny, you just marched 5 miles barefoot this morning. Your feet are held together with stitches and medical tape." Rodriguez's concern was genuine, but they both knew she was the only qualified option available. Meanwhile, Davis paced outside the command post, guilt eating at him like acid. Mitchell and Barnes were his squad mates, good Marines who didn't deserve to die because of his stupid prank. Well, he learned that Lisa was volunteering for the rescue mission despite her injuries. The irony wasn't lost on him. The same woman whose boots he'd hidden was now the only hope of bringing his friends home alive. Lisa strapped on her tactical gear, each piece of equipment checked and rechecked with mechanical precision. Her bandaged feet went into fresh combat boots, the leather stiff against her wounded soles. Pain shot through her with every step, but she moved with the fluid efficiency of someone who had done this countless times before. The helicopter dropped her at the base of the mountain ridge as the first snowflakes began falling. She had 6 hours before the storm made extraction impossible. Her radio crackled with Mitchell's last known coordinates, a position 3 miles up treacherous terrain that would challenge even healthy Marines. Lisa began her ascent, using techniques she perfected during years of mountain warfare training. Each step was calculated, each handhold tested. The stitches in her feet pulled tight with every rock face she scaled, but she maintained steady progress toward the missing Marine's position. 2 hours into the climb, she found their abandoned equipment scattered across a narrow ledge. Bloodstains on the rocks told the story of an ambush, but there were no bodies. Mitchell and Barnes were alive somewhere, possibly captured or hiding deeper in the mountain caves. Lisa activated her tactical radio. "Base, this is Rescue 1. I've reached the ambush site. Targets appear mobile." Continuing pursuit into the cave system. The cave system twisted deeper into the mountain than Lisa had anticipated. Her night vision goggles revealed fresh boot prints in the mud, leading toward a faint light source ahead. She moved silently through the narrow passages, her injured feet finding purchase on the slick rock surfaces through pure muscle memory and training. Voices echoed from a chamber ahead, speaking in Pashto. Lisa counted at least 3 distinct speakers, discussing something about American prisoners. She crept closer, using shadows and rock formations for concealment, until she could see into the main cavern. Mitchell and Barnes sat bound against the far wall, both wounded but alert. 3 Taliban fighters stood guard, their AK-47s casually slung while they argued about ransom demands. They hadn't posted a perimeter watch, confident that the approaching storm would prevent any rescue attempts. Lisa assessed the tactical situation quickly. The guards were relaxed, focused on their discussion rather than security. Her approach route offered good concealment until the final 20 meters. She had one chance to neutralize all 3 before they could harm the prisoners. Drawing her sidearm, Lisa began moving from shadow to shadow. Each step sent fire through her bandaged feet, but her breathing remained steady and controlled. This was exactly the type of close-quarter situation she'd trained for hundreds of times. Lisa moved with lethal precision, emerging from the shadows like a ghost. The first guard dropped silently, her blade finding its mark before he could react. The second spun toward the sound, but her sidearm was already drawn. 2 quick shots, center mass, professional and efficient. The third fighter raised his AK-47, but Mitchell had seen Lisa's approach and kicked out with his bound legs, throwing the terrorist off balance. Lisa's final shot echoed through the cavern, and suddenly the cave fell silent except for the prisoners' heavy breathing. She cut their restraints quickly, checking their injuries while keeping watch on the cave entrance. Mitchell had a shoulder wound, Barnes a concussion, but both were mobile enough for extraction. The storm was intensifying outside, their window for helicopter pickup closing rapidly. "Gunny-chun?" Mitchell stared at her in disbelief as she applied field dressings to his wound. "What are you doing here? Getting you idiots home before this weather kills us all." She helped Barnes to his feet, noting his unsteady balance. "Can you both move under your own power?" The 3 Marines began their descent through the cave system, Lisa leading with her night vision while supporting Barnes. Each step down the treacherous mountain path reminded her of the morning's barefoot march, but now she carried the weight of bringing her fellow Marines home safely. The extraction helicopter circled the landing zone twice before the pilot spotted Lisa's signal flare through the swirling snow. She had guided Mitchell and Barnes down the mountain for 4 grueling hours, her bandaged feet leaving bloody prints in the fresh powder with every step. As the rescue team loaded the wounded Marines into the helicopter, word of the successful mission was already spreading back to base. Captain Rodriguez monitored the radio chatter, relief flooding his voice as he confirmed all 3 Marines were alive and en route to medical care. Davis stood at the landing pad with the rest of the unit, watching the helicopter approach through the storm. His stomach churned with guilt and amazement as he realized what Lisa had accomplished. Despite her injuries from his prank, she had climbed a mountain in a blizzard and single-handedly rescued his squad mates from armed terrorists. The helicopter touched down, rotors whipping snow across the assembled Marines. Lisa emerged first, supporting Barnes as he stepped on a solid ground. Her uniform was torn and bloody, her face streaked with dirt and exhaustion, but she moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had just completed another successful mission. Mitchell caught sight of Davis in the crowd and shouted over the rotor noise, "She saved our lives, man. That woman is a legend." The base medical officer insisted on treating Lisa's feet immediately, but she refused to be seen before Mitchell and Barnes were stabilized. She sat in the waiting area, her boots finally off, revealing the extent of damage from nearly 18 hours of continuous action on wounded feet. Davis approached her slowly, his face pale with shame. He held her original combat boots in his hands, the ones he'd hidden that morning in what now seemed like another lifetime. The leather was polished to regulation standards, exactly as she'd left them. "Gunny-chun, I need to apologize." His voice cracked with emotion. "What I did was inexcusable, and you still risked everything to save my friends." Lisa looked up at him with tired but understanding eyes. The anger he expected wasn't there, just the steady professionalism that had carried her through the day's trials. She took the boots from his trembling hands and set them beside her chair. "Corporal Davis, your actions this morning taught me something important about leadership. Sometimes we have to prove ourselves not just once, but every single day." Word of the rescue had spread throughout the entire base by evening. Marines who had never heard Lisa's name before were now sharing stories of the Barefoot March and a mountain rescue. Her legend was growing with each retelling. 3 weeks later, Lisa stood before the assembled battalion as Captain Rodriguez read the citation for her Navy and Marine Corps medal. Her feet had healed completely, but the story of her Barefoot March had become permanent base lore. New Marines arriving for training heard the tale within hours of stepping off the bus. Davis had volunteered for extra duties every day since the rescue, working to prove himself worthy of serving alongside someone he now considered a hero. He stood at attention in the formation, watching as the medal was pinned to Lisa's dress blue uniform. First Sergeant Martinez stepped forward to address the battalion. Gunnery Sergeant Chun exemplifies what it means to be a Marine. When faced with adversity, she didn't complain or make excuses. She adapted, overcame, and accomplished the mission. That Barefoot March wasn't just about missing boots. It was about the warrior spirit that lives inside every true Marine. The applause thundered across the parade deck where Lisa had first walked barefoot into formation. Mitchell and Barnes, now fully recovered, led the cheers from their positions in the ranks. They owed their lives to the woman their squad mate had tried to humiliate. Lisa accepted the recognition with the same quiet dignity she'd shown that morning when her boots disappeared. Some battles are won not by what we wear on our feet, but by the strength of character we carry in our hearts. Have you ever had someone doubt your strength? Share a time when you proved them wrong in the comments below.